What's up, Flyovers? It is time for Monday Night Football, Week 13. Giants and Patriots going to be breaking down the slate for DraftKings Showdown, going position by position, starting with quarterbacks, then running backs, receivers, tight ends, defenses, kickers. I'll be making my lineups on the stream using Run the Sims at the end. You can feel free to ask any questions as we go. By the way, if you have not checked out Run the Sims, you can use promo code Neil to get 50% off your first payment on any of their NFL products. Highly recommend it. They've been making improvements. Also, if you haven't done so, please do like this video and subscribe to the channel. Getting pretty close to 6,000 subscribers, the goal by the end of the NFL season. Still got over 100 to go, so could use your support in getting there. Like I said, I'm going to be starting with quarterbacks. Good to see all of you in chat. Nice job liking it first, Sean. Yeah, please do like the video. The rest of you, if you haven't done so already, congrats on your sweat, Devin. Guessing it did not get there, or you would have said that. All right, that is tough. I didn't have any sweats last night. Zach Ertz buried me pretty quickly. I had 6% Zach Ertz. That was not going to get it done last night. So that was not great. All right, let's get into it. Starting with the quarterbacks, we can look at the matchups to start. My windows are messed up. Usually I have like the StreamYard on the left, and then my other, and it's for some reason my windows are backwards, so I keep on clicking on the wrong window here, but I'll get it figured out. The Patriot side, we have Drake May against the Giants. This is the 7th best matchup for quarterbacks in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed over the past 5 weeks. Nice matchup for Drake May. He is expensive. Oh, good. My sim has already run. It's getting faster and faster. Just re-uploaded or updated projections, projected ownership, everything. Just reset everything so I could rerun the sims. Drake May 11,800. Not really an issue on a slate where we have infinite value. We don't have much that we like to pay up for. So 11,800, not really prohibitive. Drake May projects for 54% ownership. 28% captain ownership. I am slightly over the field, 57% flex, slightly under the field at captain with 21% Drake May. I think you can play Drake May in all of your lineups if you want to. I wouldn't call anybody a must play on this slate. Like, you're definitely going to lose without them, but I think Drake May is the closest thing we have, like a player that it's pretty risky if you don't play him in some of your lineups. Like, if you play 20 lineups and don't have any exposure to Drake May, you're taking on a lot of risk. I think that he is a very strong play on this slate. He probably will end up being my highest owned player. Again, it's a nice matchup. Giants 7th most schedule adjusted. Also, Patriots offense ranks 5th in pass rate over expectation over the course of the season. So everything lines up well for May. He also runs a little bit on the season, 25.6 rushing yards per game, 2 rushing touchdowns in 12 games. Really strong fantasy asset in a nice matchup. Not really much more you need to say about Drake May. As far as stacking goes, I don't think you need to force the stack in every lineup if you're playing 150. If you want to play some naked Drake May, again, he has rushing touchdown 1 out of every 6 games on the season. Certainly could rush for 1, spreads the ball around a bit. So there are ways for him to get there without any pass catchers. I don't think I'm going to do it a lot, though, because he does have inexpensive pass catchers. So typically when I have Drake May, I'm going to want him to be stacked up. Also, when I have him in the captain spot, I do want him to be multi-stacked most of the time because he runs a little bit, but it's not like he's the elite rushing quarterback. We're expecting him to put up 10 fantasy points on the ground. The negative for Drake May is he is missing 2 offensive linemen, which it's difficult to know exactly how much that is a concern, but it's always a concern. He does have Garrett Bradbury is playing, so that was a concern that they were going to be missing a 3rd offensive lineman, but Garrett Bradbury is starting the center, so that is at least good news. But they're still missing 2 offensive linemen, Will Campbell and I'm blanking now on who the second, another good offensive, Jared Wilson, also out. So tough to be missing 2 of your starting offensive linemen. How much that's going to be a factor today, can't be too sure. But we know that it's not a good thing. Bring some volatility to a spot where we would expect them to be very good, and he's going to be high owned. So if you want to fade him, based on, hey, maybe the defense is going to be able to get to him, that's fine. I'm probably not going to be doing that. I'm going to be playing a lot of Drake May. Look at this old man in chat. EMAC, good to see you. Always good to see EMAC. Do you think the Giants keep up? Not really. It's in New England. I don't know. The Giants are one of those teams that like surprises me frequently with, especially like with Jackson Dart. I think he's, and I guess with Jameis Winston too, like anybody but Russell Wilson. I think they've got a shot to stay him. So yeah, I think they keep up. I changed my mind. I think they keep up. I think the Patriots win, but I think the Giants keep it close enough that it'll be interesting. What's up, everybody? May has 12 red zone rushes. Everyone else total is 50. That's a good note from Steven. Had Harvey Captain, Nix, Sutton, Ertz, C-Rod, Bryant. Ooh, that's a beautiful Singleton lineup. 22nd with 2 minutes left. Yeah, I suppose with overtime. That's not ideal, but that's nice. Is it your birthday, Emek? You, what are you, 72, 73? Happy birthday. I did not know that. All right. Continuing, Jackson Dart. So yeah, Drake May looks great. Jackson Dart, also a very strong play. 10,000, much cheaper than Drake May, projected for 48% flex ownership, 10% captain ownership. I'm now getting above the field on Jackson Dart, both in the flex and at captain. 51% at flex, 21% at captain. I'd be fine with that, being well over the field on Dart in both places. We did get a report from Jordan Renan posted by Not EOM in the Flaniverse Discord. By the way, Flaniverse Discord, free to join. Link in the description of this video if you're interested in checking out the Flaniverse Discord. Sometimes people throw in helpful stuff like that. Sometimes people throw in memes. A lot of fun had there. The quote from Jordan Renaud that Not EOM posted: "Not expecting the Giants to call many, if any, designed runs for Jackson Dart coming off a concussion. One offensive player told ESPN he didn't expect designed runs in this plan against the Patriots. That should help limit the hits that Dart takes." Now, I don't take that to mean, I'm reading. Sorry, I put it in the wrong tab. I don't take that to mean that he is not going to run at all. Just no designed runs, which to me is not the same thing as he's not going to run. It just means like they're not planning for him to run. So it's still possible that Jackson Dart picks up some rushing work, just not really part of the game plan. So maybe probably makes it less likely that he is going to rush for a ton of yards in this game. Yes, EMAC. I do agree with all in a year. Maybe get some young blood. Like we could use a president who is under 60 years old for the first time in many years. And so yeah, I'm out on EMAC for now. Maybe EMAC's the last old guy I'll vote for. I'll vote for one more old guy in my lifetime, and then everyone the rest of the way 60 and under. All right. So I think Jackson Dart, very strong play. I'm not thinking that he's not going to rush at all. I still think he's probably going to rush some. I don't think he's going to like be able to help himself to rush a little bit. So yeah, I'm in on Jackson Dart. If I get to less as I get to other plays, I'll take it, but I'm fine. I'd be fine getting a little bit less than this, but generally I want to have him in 60+% of my lineups at the very least. And also he does run a bit now again, with that quote, maybe makes it less likely that he puts up a ton on the ground. On the season, Dart 35.7 rushing yards per game, has 7 rushing touchdowns in 9 games with just 7 starts. Like that's really elite rushing production, fantasy wise. With that said, they're saying they're not going to design as many runs. That does make me less inclined to play Jackson Dart without pass catchers, less inclined to play him with just one pass catcher if I have him a captain. Typically, I'm going to want him to be double stacked when I have him a captain, singles, at least one stack if I have him in the flex as well. Okay. Moving on. Quarterbacks, I think, are pretty straightforward. We don't need to go over them long. They're generally some of the best plays on the slate. That is the case on this one. We don't have many like sure things on this slate, so I think Drake May and Jackson Dart look particularly good because I don't know, the rest of the slate doesn't look as good. Running backs. And I can sort by salary, I suppose. That's a good way to sort it. You can now, new thing at Run the Sims, you can sort these columns. That's pretty useful to me in particular. But I think everybody can find that fairly useful. At the top, Trevion Henderson, 8,000 projected for 42% flex ownership, 28% captain ownership. Using those numbers, I got to 43% in the flex, 5% at captain. I do think I'm going to be adjusting these ownership numbers somewhat because I think these are generally higher for some of these running backs than elsewhere and lower for others. Like I think Stevenson projected for higher ownership elsewhere, and I'd be surprised if he comes in at just 10%. Roto Grinders has Ramondre Stevenson at 21% projected ownership. They have Trevion Henderson at 37.5 in the flex. And I'll need to reset this. Refresh. They have 22% captain ownership, so a little bit lower in the captain for Trevion Henderson, and he would look better with at lower than 28. I think he's objectively fairly strong play. He's only 8,000. The price is nice. Only 12,000 in the captain spot. Looks like a strong play. If he's going to get steamed too much, then yeah, it makes sense to play less. But I think I'll probably lower the projected ownership and see what I get there for Trevion Henderson, because I would like to get some risk with Trevion Henderson, with Ramondre Stevenson another week removed from injury. But it's a great matchup, second best matchup in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed per game over the past 5 weeks. Love that for the Patriots running backs. The negatives, the biggest risk I would say is 2 offensive linemen out is obviously not great. That really can be a concern for running backs, and he's going to be fairly high owned, but not expensive. I would like to get to a fair amount of Trevion Henderson. Let's see if I can pull up just week 12. So this is the first game with the Ramondre Stevenson came back, and in that first game back, 18 carries for Trevion Henderson plus 4 targets on 51.3% route participation. That was against the Bengals. Actually did not do that well against the Bengals, which was pretty shocking because everybody does well against the Bengals. Only 11.1 fantasy points with 17.6 expected fantasy points for Trevion Henderson in that game. That's pretty rough, and that's part of the reason that I am a little bit concerned about the offensive line. Like, the offensive line got hurt and they couldn't run on the Bengals, and everybody runs on the Bengals. Everybody runs on the Giants too, but gives me a slight pause, or it would on a slightly larger slate. But on a 1-game slate, can only choose so many options. So I anticipate I will have a good amount of Trevion Henderson. If I end up slightly under the field, with the field at 70% Trevion Henderson, I guess I'd be okay with that because of that concern with the offensive line. But I also would be happy getting above 70%. Like, it's not a huge factor for me. I think I'll probably take what I get after I lower the captain ownership. I'm not going to force my way to 80% Trevion Henderson. I'll see what I get if I bring the captain ownership down to 20, 22%. And then I'll just take it from there. We also have Ramondre Stevenson at 5,000 projected here for just 10% ownership. I do think that's low. I think I'll be raising Ramondre Stevenson's ownership a little bit as well. At 10%, I got to 22% in the flex, plus 1% at captain. I think the best case you can make for Ramondre Stevenson is we really don't know what the split is going to look for. And last week he had 6 carries and 2 targets. That's not a terrible workload. It's not enough for a $5,000 running back, but you'd think that he's going to get more work as he comes back longer from this toe injury. Not a sure thing because Trevion Henderson has looked really good, but I think most likely the coaches have loved him. I think they're going to go back and give Ramondre Stevenson a bit more workload, and also fairly likely to get goal line work. So there's a lot working in Ramondre Stevenson's favor, just in terms of standalone role. Obviously has contingent upside as well. But as Adam and I were discussing earlier, he's not even using an aggressive projection on Ramondre Stevenson. He's being fairly conservative in terms of the projected usage for Ramondre Stevenson, and I'm still getting double the field if you give him 10% ownership. It'll change if I bring him up to 20%, but I'd say generally I want to be well above the field on Ramondre Stevenson. I like to have him in at least, probably 25% of my lineups is kind of what I'm shooting for on Ramondre Stevenson. So actually, maybe I'll just leave the ownership here, because I would have to increase the usage otherwise if I increase the ownership to still get as much as I want. So I might just leave it. I think he's a very strong 5,000. Again, I think he could, get back to getting something like 45% of the work, in which case he would be a smash at 5,000. So yeah, Ramondre, it looks great to me. And then on the Giant side, again, if we we are sorted by salary. Tyrone Tracy, 7,600 projected for 37% flex ownership, 4% captain ownership. I'm getting to 26 and 3. Again, looking at the schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed per game, not as great of a matchup. It is the fourth worst matchup for Giants running backs. A really nice one for Patriots running backs, not so great for Giants running backs. What you do like about the Giants running backs is the strong usage. So if we just look at the past 3 weeks, strong usage and the price tag. Tyrone Tracy over the past 3 weeks, 53 carries plus 10 targets on 49% route participation. So what is that? 16, 17, just over 17 carries per game, plus just over 3 targets per game on decent route participation. He's just 7,600. Fair price for a player getting the kind of volume that Tyrone Tracy is getting. If I end up onto the field on Tyrone Tracy, I'm fine with that. Like, this is about where I'd like to be, somewhere around 30% of my lineups, just a slight underweight approach on Tyrone Tracy. The same is not true for Devin Singletary. For me, I'd like to be overweight on Devin Singletary, again, just because he already has a really strong standalone role, and then he has great contingent upside on top of it. He's 4,600. Looking at his usage over the past 3 weeks, 8 carries, so over 12 carries per game, just under 13 for Devin Singletary. Also has 4 targets on 19.5% route participation. That's not great, just over 1 target per game, but the usage, well, that's pretty strong. Even in a tough matchup at 4,600, not getting a ton of ownership, I think Singletary looks pretty great. Let me look at the ownership at RG also. I'm curious to see. Just kind of want to compare and contrast. Where is he? There he is. Okay, they also have him at 17%. So looks the same. I'm probably going to try to get to more of Devin Singletary. So yeah, generally I'd say I want to be overweight on Ramondre and Singletary. You know the drill. If you've watched enough of my streams, I love the backup running backs. I think the Sims do a great job of accounting for most things. I think most Sims don't really play for the contingent upside as much. Like they don't have the full upside baked into the Sims, where the starting running back goes down in the first half, because that's kind of a hard thing. You don't really want your people playing terrible lineups. But I like to play those scenarios where potentially the backup running back could get more work. With that said, I'm still, both of these teams, you can absolutely play both running backs together. Henderson and Stevenson to combine just 13,000 for all of the work for the Patriots in a great matchup like that. That'd be the equivalent of what would Jonathan Taylor cost against the Giants? It would probably be about 13,000, and their combined workload is about the same. I think that it's totally fine to play them together. Same thing for the Giants. I'm less enthusiastic about the Giants, but it's still 12,200 to play the 2 Giants running backs together. Fair price to get the entire backfield workload. So yeah, absolutely willing to play the running backs together. Let me check in on chat, and then I'll move on to talk about wide receivers. All right, hang on. Oh man, I'm getting behind. EMAC is really riling people up as usual. Matt Bellman in chat. I see somebody mentioned Matt Bellman. Matt Bellman encouraged me to do the Thanksgiving halftime after the game, all those updates and stuff, and then never commented on it once. Said he was looking forward to it, and then I don't know if you read it. Hopefully you read it, Matt. A lot of people seem. Oh, there's Bellman. What's going on, Matt? Oh, DFS and props just says happy birthday every day to EMAC. All right, so we're just lying here. Good note from Steven. Lots of injuries on Giants defense. Probably nullified the Pats injuries. Yeah, Thibodeau is still out. They do have several defensive injuries, which, yeah, they don't get a lot of pressure on quarterbacks anyway. That's good note. Milton Williams is out, and they're missing another defensive player. I'm forgetting who it is now. I was just reading about how they're also, on top of missing Milton Williams, they're also missing another defensive player who's kind of impactful. Another name that I know. Maybe I know more Patriots defensive players than I think I do. Need that. Thanks. Giants running backs over Pats running backs. I mean, it's a worse matchup, but you can make the case for it, I suppose, if you don't believe in the offensive line of the Patriots. I mean, theoretically, at least all in year, that should be factored into schedule adjusted in terms of like the schedule adjusted matchup. It's like how well have they done against the teams they've faced? Like that's kind of what schedule adjusted, at least in theory, should account for. So he says Giants run D maybe but might be better than it looks if you look at who they have had to try and stop the last two games. Most teams would probably look bad against the run with the same schedule. Just like theoretically, at least that is what schedule adjusted fantasy points should account for the matchup. Yeah, red zone work for Singletary also. All right. I want to hear foolproof strategy. Yes. Oh yeah. Love to cash the main slate and donate a showdown, of course. It's a max one of Wandale and Slayton for me. I understand the argument against it, but those prices are just way too high. I honestly considered running. That's fine. I mean, I wouldn't do it in the 150 set, but if you're playing 20 lineups and you want to do a max one, yes, Tonga is out. That's right. All right. Glad to hear it, Matt. Teams advancing currently 29, projected for 28.4. Somehow my advance rate went down even after Jalen Coker scored a touchdown, had a big game. RJ Harvey had a big game. Like a lot of players that I'm super high on or that I'm overweight on did not help me apparently enough. All right. Moving on to wide receivers. I'm all caught up on chat. Wandale Robinson is the most expensive. We'll start with the Giant side. Wandale is 9,000 projected for 30% flex ownership, 9% captain ownership. Using those numbers, I got to 25% flex, 5% captain. I want to compare this. So that's 39% total ownership with 9% a captain for Wandale. I thought we were maybe going to bring this number down. No, it's higher at Roto-Grinders. They have them at 42% flex ownership, an 8.5 captain. Okay. That's a lot of ownership going to Wandale. Now, I wanted to be out on Wandale, but it's tough to be when you look at the usage that he's had in recent weeks. Just looking, I'll bring up the last four, which is, I mean, it's 2 games with Jameis Winston, 2 games with Jackson Dart. But the high target share has been there the whole time for Wandale over the past 4 weeks. 44 targets, 11 targets per game over the past 4 weeks on 97% route participation. He's always been, good at earning targets. Historically, people have called him kind of a PPR scam, but he's been sometimes getting, some big plays lately as well. So he feels a little bit expensive to me. I think I'll end up underweight on Wandale, but tough to argue with that usage. And I tried to separate it out earlier. I looked at all right, the last 2 games were with Jameis Winston. Like how much is that factored in? And it's a little bit with Jameis Winston, those last 2 games, 34.8% target share for Wandale Robinson. That's 23 targets in those 2 games. But the 2 games prior to that with Dart, it was still 30.4% target share on 99% routes, 21 targets in those 2 games. That's elite usage anyway you cut it. But both of those are top wide receiver numbers, whether it's with Dart, whether it's with Winston. So tough to argue that he's not a strong play at 9,000. Usually if you get a receiver getting a 30% target share, that's Drake London or top receivers in the league are getting 30% target share. So he's cheaper than the typical top receiver. And I think he probably should be because he historically has not always produced a ton of fantasy points, even when he does get a lot of targets. But we've seen him have some big games this year. So I think he's probably fine. If I get to 30% and the field is at 40 or 50%, I'd be happy. I'm fine being underweight, but he's not like a full fade for me at 9,000. I'm not going to make the same mistake I made with Zach Ertz last night with Wandale Robinson. After Wandale Robinson, we have Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, and that's pretty much it as far as Giants receivers we need to seriously consider. Jalen Hyatt is inactive, so if anybody was thinking about taking a dart throw there, you don't have to worry about it. He is not playing today. So it's mostly just Wandale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and Isaiah Hodgins. Looking at the usage, here's the route share report for the Giants. Obviously, really strong route participation for Wandale Robinson. Isaiah Hodgins' first game with the Giants was in week 11, 77% route participation down to 74 in week 12. So kind of maintained it even with Darius Slayton returning. That was, to me, a little bit of a sort of a surprise. I thought it would at least dip a little bit. Didn't dip at all in terms of the route participation. Managed to stay up there. It is worth noting this is the first game that Isaiah Hodgins is playing with Jackson Dart. His 2 games have both been with Jameis Winston. He was new to the team, just signed with the team prior to week 11. So doesn't have any time yet with Jackson Dart. That could be a concern if you're thinking about playing Isaiah Hodgins. Darius Slayton, I think Darius Slayton actually did see the bigger split than Wandale in games with Jackson Dart versus Jameis Winston. Actually, let me pull that up, which was kind of counterintuitive. I thought he was going to go off with Jameis Winston, frankly, and that did not happen at all for Darius Slayton. So let me find my note on Slayton. All right, where is he? Okay. He only played 1 game with Jameis Winston. He was hurt in the other one. He was only targeted twice on 61.5% route participation in that 1 game with Jameis Winston. In the 2 games prior with Jackson Dart, he was targeted 11 times on 73.2% route participation. So 11 targets in his last 2 games with Dart. Like, that is pretty good. We'll take 11 targets for Darius Slayton. Certainly could make some big plays there. Slayton looks good. Hodgins is... Somebody was asking earlier about Hodgins as a captain. I am currently getting to 2% captain exposure to Isaiah Hodgins with a projection of 0% captain. So I am actually above the field on Isaiah Hodgins, getting just under the field overall, 19% Hodgins. He's like clearly a good value at 3,600, but he's getting a lot of ownership. And also, like I said, has never played with Jackson Dart before. We don't know what that's going to look like. Maybe Jackson Dart will, maybe he'll he could hyper focus on him. Seems unlikely, seems more likely he's going to see a handful of targets. If he scores a touchdown, you'll want him at 3,600. If he doesn't, you probably won't want him at 3,600. It is, I should note, I think it's a negative matchup. Actually, let me pull this up. Yeah, it's actually not. It's a pretty mediocre matchup, right in the middle of the pack in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. It's a slightly positive matchup for slot receivers. So that would be Wandale Robinson. Overall, just a kind of neutral matchup for Giants receivers. I'm like, part of me is tempted to just play a lot of Isaiah Hodgins because he's only 3,600 and he's one of the 3 receivers that we're expecting to play at all. But I think ultimately with getting ownership and having his first game with Jackson Dart, just being right around 20%, I think is kind of the safe way to play it with Isaiah Hodgins. And I think that's probably how I'm going to play it. You also have Dalen Camber. I've never even heard of this person. Dalen Camber is the wider, and Gunnar Olszewski. Olszewski 1,200. Dalen Cambry. I'd never seen this name before in my life. So I can't tell you that I have done any kind of research into 0% route participation in the last 2 games. He's been active, apparently, just not running any routes. Gunnar Olszewski 0 and 5.1% the last 2 games. Again, Jalen Hyatt is out. I guess that's why you could consider playing Camber. But, there's always contingent upside. There's if there's an injury ahead of him, if there's a blowout, I suppose you might see Camber. So that would be the case for playing him. He's only 200, not getting any ownership. I think that's fine for a large field dart throw. But like generally, you wouldn't expect him to see the field in the course of a regular game. It would be most likely only in the case of a blowout or an injury. So it wouldn't make him like a big part of your portfolio. But in a 150 set, if you want to play 2% of this guy, it's fine. Olszewski, kind of the same thing. Again, looking at the route participation for Olszewski, I mean, he did play 37% in week 10. Who was out in that game? Maybe McLeod got hurt partway through. Hodgins is not there yet. And then I guess they just replaced Olszewski with Hodgins. They obviously don't want to use him on offense, getting offensive snaps. So we're mostly just playing Darius Slayton. And again, Slayton, I'm well over the field here. 15% projected ownership going to Slayton with 1% of captain. I'm getting to 24 and 8. He looks like a fairly strong play at 6,400 with 11 targets in his last 2 games with Jackson Dart. Could see more route participation this game than he did in the last one. I think Slayton is a strong play. And then on the other side, we have the Patriots. Stephon Diggs, 8,800 projected for 30% flex, 11% captain ownership. I'm getting to 22 and 2% of Diggs, that is risky. I don't know. I don't know if I'll force more of that. It's not something I feel that strongly about. I think I'd like more than 2% at captain because I think Diggs has big upside. The scary thing with Diggs is just looking at the route participation report. Down to just 51% route participation in week 12. That's with Kayshon Boutte back. So he had been kind of trending upward. It was up every week, up to 89% in week 11. I think a lot of us were like, all right, Diggs, finally like a full-time starting receiver, and then dropped down to 51% against the Bengals. I didn't love seeing that. That concerns me a bit. I think it's going to come back up. I wouldn't guess that it comes back up to 89%, but maybe it comes back up to similar to what he did in week 10. He's also going to be targeted a fair amount when he is out there. So I'm not, again, this isn't like a huge concern, but don't love seeing that throughout participation. He just kind of gets dragged down at random if he's getting a lot of ownership. So being under the field, I think I'm okay with it. I don't know that I'm okay with being at just 2% captain. I probably want more than that of Diggs. In terms of the matchup, it is fairly strong one. Again, better for slot receivers, but generally a good matchup overall for receivers. It is looks like 11th best, if I counted that out right, schedule adjusted fantasy points per game matchup for receivers over the past 5 weeks against the Giants. Beyond Diggs, we have Kayshon Boutte is 6,800. And here's I'm getting to, so I'm going to have to adjust the ownership a little bit. Let me look at the Roto-Grinders ownership on Boutte, Diggs, Pop Douglas, and Matt Collins, because right now I'm getting to a ton of Matt Collins and Kayshon Boutte because they're not projected for much ownership at all. But that's going to be a really ownership sensitive because they have a lot of volatility in the inputs there. Yeah, RG has Diggs at 39% flex ownership, Boutte at 12%. Okay, so that's also, they also have him very low. Matt Collins at 13, Pop Douglas at 13, Kyle Williams at 0.4. Interesting. So actually the ownership is pretty similar across the board. So maybe I don't need to change the ownership. Yeah, I mean, if they're going to be that low owned, I guess Boutte is 7% here. So I might want to bring up that Boutte a little bit. I do think he's a strong play if he's not getting much ownership. He is a big play threat always. If we just look at, let's see, fantasy points scored. Is that what this is? Yeah, fantasy points scored 16 in week 1, and then a big drought, 4 games with nothing, then back up to 26, 13, 16, and got hurt in week 9, came back, first game back in week 12, didn't do anything. But we've seen some stretches here where he's putting up a lot of fantasy points. The usage fairly strong. Over the past 4 games, he hasn't been playing all that much. And he actually got hurt in one of these games, so this is not going to tell the whole story. In that last game, week 12, he ran 67. I think he was only targeted twice in that last game, but he was back up to 77% route participation in week 12. So I'm not going to worry too much about the targets. Yeah, again, not a huge target share for Kayshon Boutte, but at 6,800, like we've seen several games where he's able to pop off even without a big target share because he is a big play threat. Matt Collins also 6,200 projected for 11% ownership. I'm getting to 40% and 11% at captain. Now I might not want quite that much of Matt Collins, but tough to argue with the usage. Again, looking at the past 4 weeks for Matt Collins, 23 targets. He is third on the team, just behind Diggs has 25, Henry has 25, Collins 23 targets over the past 4 weeks, 72% route participation. And that didn't really drop with Kayshon Boutte returning. He was at 74% route participation in week 12 after, he was in the 80s in weeks 10 and 11. So I guess dropped a small bit, but has had really strong usage over the past 4 weeks. I think we can play a lot of Matt Collins. If he's 6,200, getting just 11, 12% ownership, he's going to look really good in the Sims. Pop Douglas is 4,000 projected for 12% ownership. I got to 4%. He's kind of like the worst version of Kayshon Boutte in that he has at times popped off. Did he pop off for just 1 game? Is it just 1? Yeah, he had a 20-point game at 2, actually. 16 in week 6, 20 in week 9. Both of those were on limited route participation. Week 6, he was at 42%, week 9, 32.5% route participation. So like he's not a full-time player, and yet he's capable of those big plays as a part-time player. Still, he actually, we saw kind of a decrease down to 23% route participation in week 12 for Pop Douglas. Don't love that trend now because Mac Hollins kind of trending up, it seems, and that maybe is cutting into Pop Douglas, Kayshon Boutte back. There's just not enough space there to give him a ton of usage. So my guess is that he remains, 20 to 30%, not like 40 to 50, and probably doesn't see more than a few targets. Again, though, he's capable of big plays. I think I want him in my player pool. I don't know that I want more than the 12% he's projected for. I'd rather just play. If they're all getting the same ownership, I'd pay up for Hollins, Boutte, who are more likely to see more targets. And then Kyle Williams is 2,000. I don't know that I need to get to Kyle Williams just because down to 5% route participation in week 12. It's a bit thin. You can hope for one big play like he had in week 10. He got 14 fantasy points. He'd obviously love that. That was on one like 70 something yard touchdown. I'm not going to do the math right now. Yeah, 72-yard touchdown. I'm guessing it's what one catch plus 6 plus. Okay, yeah, 72-yard touchdown for Kyle Williams. I guess he's capable of that, but he's might not even see the field in this game with the downward trend. So I don't know that I get there. But yeah, going to be in on Hollins, Pop Douglas. Not so much Pop Douglas. Going to be in on Hollins, Boutte, Diggs, and then Douglas. I'll have a little bit. I think that's it on wide receivers. Let me check in on chat. Move on to tight ends. All right. That's bullish. Hollins arrived at the stadium with a tire and crowbar in his hand. Definitely bullish. All right, I got to scroll up a little bit. All right. How we doing tonight? How much is Slayton going to be a non-factor? He screwed me so much, got a hard time clicking him. Why bring in Hodgins? I mean, they brought in Hodgins when Slayton was out. So like maybe, I don't know. I think could bring back more of his role. But yeah, I mean, he's expensive. If you don't want to click him, you certainly don't need to. But like most of the field isn't going to. That's what I like about him. Does Hyatt healthy scratch mean anything except Bellinger gets more ownership? I suppose it could lead to more ownership on Bellinger. Maybe more on the other receivers too. Dart did seem to trust and favor Theo. I agree with that. We'll talk about the tight ends as well. Yeah, Theo looks good on this slate. Yeah, definitely true that the Giants defense gets a boost here. I agree with that. Garrett Bradbury is playing, but like who knows if the illness is going to slow him down. Oh wow. Aaron says he's going to play Jameis Winston contrarian lineup because Dark gets hurt all the time. Which wide receiver tight end should we pair him with? I mean, Jameis was targeting, he did not target Slayton. He theoretically would look good with Slayton, but he looked great with Wandale. So it would probably be Wandale and Hodgins are the two that, but I don't know. I haven't given a ton of thought to playing any Jameis. I would say those are the two that he seemed to target were Wandale and Hyatt. Not Hyatt. Wandale and Hodgins. Who got elevated from practice squad? Not seeing any previous comment except for got elevated from practice squad. Efton Chisholm? Is that what we're talking about? I missed something. All right. Yeah, that's true. I like that call, Steven. They could be playing more 12 if they want to run, or just like in general because they're missing offensive linemen. Maybe they run more 12 personnel. I think that's possible. There's not a single play sub 3K that I confidently say will score 3 fantasy points. Giants defense has to be in play. It's definitely in play. Is Eric Gray active? I don't think so. At least he's not projecting for anything. Who do you believe in more for captain, Diggs or Wandale? Probably Wandale. Just going to see more. I don't know, better matchup for Diggs, but I think Wandale's usage trumps. So probably, if I'm playing one, to be Wandale. All right. Dalen Cambry. Oh, okay, that's who you're talking about. Sorry, I was way behind on chat. That's who you're talking about. Dalen Cambry activated from practice squad. I don't know anything about Eric Gray tonight. Let me search. Let me look real quick. I don't believe he's showing up in Run the Sims at all, so I'm guessing not. But I could be wrong about that. It appears that he is active. So I guess he theoretically could come in a blowout, get some run. They're using him as a kickoff returner. Well, hang on. I need to double check this. Does RotoGrinders have him in their projections? Yeah, okay, he's projecting for zero. Yeah, so he's active. I don't think Run the Sims is giving him any kind of usage. Yeah, 0% of the market share, but they do have him in there. So if you wanted to say it's going to be a blowout, they're going to let Eric Gray run at the end, I think you could play him. I don't know that I get there, but that seems fine. All right, tight ends. Hunter Henry is 7,400, projected for 30% flex, 3% captain ownership. I'm getting to 15% flex, 0.5% captain. In terms of the schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, this is a slight negative matchup. 9th worst matchup for tight ends against the Giants. Nice usage, though, for Hunter Henry. Over the past 4 games, 25 targets, so over 6 targets per game. Much better than Zach Ertz, by the way. No, not that much. Zach Ertz was 5 targets per game, I think, coming into that one. 6 targets per game over the past 4 for Hunter Henry. 76% route participation. We just saw the big game last week. I don't really want to chase what happened last week because that was against the Bengals. Every tight end does well against the Bengals. So, don't want to read too much into the last game for Hunter Henry, but pretty strong usage in general. Could continue to see that. I think he is the number 2 receiver here for the Patriots. So Hunter Henry looks like a fine play, just getting a bit too much ownership at 33%. I think I will want to be under the field at 7,400. As we just saw last night, you can see these players that don't look good point per, in terms of their usage relative to their salary, could just suddenly see a ton of usage, maybe with more pressure on the quarterback. They target the tight end more. I know somebody was telling me on Twitter yesterday that was why they played Zach Ertz, because they were going to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So then the quarterback often throws it to the tight end. If you want to play that angle, I think that's fine. But he's, to me, just a little bit too expensive and getting too much ownership. So because of the ownership at that price, I'm probably going to be underweight on Hunter Henry. Austin Hooper, 3,400, projected for 7% flex ownership, none at captain. I'm only getting to 1%. That does worry me a bit. I think that's probably because there are so many other players that just look better and are getting no ownership. But over the past 3 games for Austin Hooper, 6 targets on 36.5% route participation. Not bad for an RB or for a tight end too. Has not actually been targeted as much in the red zone as Adam and I were both thinking that he had been. But an obvious, like, could be a red zone threat for the Patriots. And as Steven mentioned, maybe with all the hurt offensive linemen, he could just be on the field more. Maybe they just want to run more 2 tight end sets because they need bigger bodies with all the offensive linemen out. I think there are reasons to want to play some Austin Hooper. I think I'd like to have more than the 1% I'm getting right now. I don't know that I need to be much over the 7% that the field is projected to get to. He is 3,400, kind of expensive. Unlikely to see more than 3-4 targets, kind of on the high end, I think. So I think I'd be fine with 7 to 10% Austin Hooper, kind of the range that I'd be shooting for. Jack Westover, 400, projected for 1.6% flex ownership. I got to 1%. If we just look at, is he not in here? Where is he in the route share report? I could swear that I've seen him run routes, but he's not showing up. Anyway, he's not going to get much usage. You can play a little bit of Jack Westover, I guess, if you want. But with both Henry and Hooper active, just not expecting much. Probably just a garbage time play. You're hoping for 1 catch at the price tag. Theo Johnson, 5,800, projected for 32% flex, 3% captain ownership. I'm getting to 34% flex and 10% captain. Theo Johnson looks great for a lot of reasons. I think this is actually one of the few places that they actually have a pretty good matchup. Yeah, 4th best matchup in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to the tight end position. So that looks good for Theo Johnson. Also has had a strong rapport with Jackson Dart in his. Let me pull up my notes here on Theo. In 2 games with Jameis Winston, Theo Johnson targeted 9 times. That's just a 13.6% target share, despite 80% route participation. In the 2 games prior to that with Jackson Dart, 14 targets, a 20.3% target share on 75.6% route participation. So generally, Theo Johnson has done better with Jackson Dart. And it's a nice matchup for tight ends. So at 5,800, he does look to me like a fairly strong option. As I said, I'm currently over the field on Theo Johnson. I'm happy with that. I'll play a good amount. Daniel Bellinger, 1,600, projected for 9% flex, none at captain. I'm getting to 7% Daniel Bellinger. I think he's a strong play, but maybe not enough that I need to force my way to more Daniel Bellinger. I don't know that I'm going to bump him or anything. Let's see. 20.5% route participation in that last game, 32 the game before that for Daniel Bellinger. With Hyatt out, I was out in week 12 and we still just saw 20% route participation for Bellinger. So I don't know that really factors in much, but they don't have a ton of bodies. So I guess he also has some contingent upside. They could run more 12. I think he's a fine play, just not somebody that is like standing out. You kind of don't need that much at 1,600. He could score a touchdown. Seems like a fine, but not like exceptional play. Chris Mannertz, I'm not getting to any currently. Looking at the route participation, 2.6% last week, and it was a couple of zeros before that. Kind of a dart throw, nothing more. All right, kickers and defenses. And I'm going to check in on chat. All right. Doing hand builds on this site is difficult to leave money on the table. Yeah. All right. Favorite single entry captain. Honestly, it's probably just Drake May. It's probably just where I'd go in single entry. Trevion Henderson looks pretty good. I think Ramondre Stevenson's a little bit sneaky if you want to get weird with your single entry captain. Who else? Theo Johnson, kind of sneaky. I actually think he's a strong option if you want to get weird with your single entry. And the fact that I say I would probably go to Drake May, that's probably a lot of people's thought, like just go to the sure thing, that captain, and get different elsewhere. So if you want to get different, I'd say, yeah, Theo Johnson, fairly strong play. Try that if you want to get different, or just play Drake May and get different elsewhere. All right. Cambry's only depth for kicking duties, so Gunner stays the same. Okay, yep. Bumps up Wandale without Hyatt. I don't think Hyatt affects that much. Like, he wasn't that involved anyway. Steven says that defending tight ends is the only thing the Giants are good at. That's backed up by the schedule adjusted. Sean's not playing Diggs with a broken finger. Yeah, I had not seen that he broke his finger. That's interesting. I don't think he was on the injury report. But yeah, I mean, if you could also play more Booty and Hollins. Agree with this. If you think that he's got a reel, if he's going to be a decoy, then load up on Mac Hollins and Keyshawn Booty. It's a good angle. Jamming Theo, I don't think is a bad idea. Oh yeah, we could have done. I could have been doing some puns. Jackson dart throws. Yes, playing Theo over Tracy straight up is definitely a good way, I think, to leave 1,800 on the table in a single entry, assuming the rest of your lineup makes sense. That's also a lot of money to leave on the table, so kind of depends on the size of the contest. If it's like a super large single entry and contests where that's, you need to get different, then I'd say that's totally viable. I think Theo could easily outscore Tyrone Tracy. Yeah, his snap count, his route participation down at 51%. All right. Moving on. Defenses, kickers. These damn windows being... I'm getting to... So right now I'm getting to all the Andy Borregales, 45% plus 1% of captain, and not getting to much else. And I'm going to even this out. I don't really get it, because I think you can make a strong case for the Patriots against Jackson Dart. Has had some turnovers in his short career. I actually don't remember exactly how turnover prone he is, but in my mind he's turnover prone. Regardless, it's a strong defense against a young quarterback who is going to be running less. I think the Patriots look like a fairly strong play, so I think I'm going to boost the Patriots a little bit. I also think the Giants, against an offensive line that is missing multiple offensive linemen, and they're only 3,200. I guess they're projected to get a fair amount of ownership, 19% projected ownership, but I think that they're totally reasonable play at 3,200. If you're hand building, I'd play some of them. I think I actually want more than the 9% I'm getting, so I might boost it slightly. I guess they're getting ownership just because, I think probably mostly just because of the price tag. Yeah, Patriots projected for 13%, Giants 12%. Yeah, so RG has them much lower owned, in which case they would look better. I don't hate it. I don't hate playing some of the Giants and Patriots. So I think I'm probably going to even this out if I take away, 20% of the exposure I'm getting to Andy Borregales and distribute it evenly across the Patriots, Younghoe Koo, and the Giants. That's probably about where I'd like to be, I think. Okay. I am going to start building my lineups. So I'm going to go to my inputs. And maybe I'll just refresh, just to make sure, because I did this right before the stream. It's possible something's changed. Always good to refresh before you start working, I think. All right. I do like Singletary a bit. What else do I need to change? Already getting to a lot of Theo, so I don't need to adjust there. How do I get to more Singletary? I could give him slightly more of the passing game work. There's not a lot to distribute there. Let's see. If I take away some from Gunnar Olszewski, just bring him down, because I'm not getting there anyway. Just bring Olszewski down to 0%. Give that to Singletary. Could also get rid of Chris Manners, probably. We'll try that. All right, then normalize that. Borregales is projected for 9.5. I'm just going to bring him down to 9. Patriots sack rate up to 7. Oh, Giants are already at 7%. Interesting. And still wasn't getting to a lot. On the Patriots side, we've got Trevion Henderson getting a little bit too much captain ownership, I think. So I'm going to bring him down to 20%. And who can I give some of this to? I mean, I can just now, you can click normalize ownership. It'll normalize across the teams. Get a smart adjust. Let's see. So I like playing some Stevenson. I'm generally happy with where things are going. I guess I can give a little bit more ownership to Hollins and Boutte. So I think I'm going to give Boutte up to 12, maybe 14 a piece. Let's try that. And then Borregales, I guess I could have just increased his ownership projection instead. Let's normalize. Okay. I'm going to rerun it and see how it goes. Got to set my settings correctly. 196 entries. All right, got it running. Let me check in on chat. Oh, and there's a bot. Made it so deep without the bot. All right. Multiple bots, damn. Do the Pats usually try to take away your number one threat? I don't know if that's true anymore. I think that has been kind of a narrative for years now. Maybe a Pats fan can answer that better than I can, but I think that was the narrative with Bill Belichick. I don't know. Do you think they'll try to take away Wan'Dale Robinson? Trying to think their recent games, have they succeeded in taking away the number one threat? I mean, a lot of teams try to take away the number one threat, so it's not something that I worry about all that much. But would that be Wan'Dale Robinson in your mind? I guess he's probably the number one threat. Patriots are in their old throwback uniforms. Nice. Some nostalgia for Steven. Yeah, I think Hodgins is a fine play. Like, he's getting ownership, but he's priced well. I think Hodgins is a good play. First game with Jackson Dart, who knows? But who is the cheap guy I have to have because he scores and is optimal? Depends on what you consider cheap, but I think, like, if you're talking under 4,000, Hodgins is definitely the most likely of that group. Otherwise, if it's under 6,000, I'd probably say Theo Johnson. If it's under 7,000, I'd probably say Theo Johnson. I also think Ramondre Stevenson at 5,000. There's not really a cheap guy that's like a really cheap guy that looks that great. You can definitely fade Wan'Dale on a 3-entry max, if that's how you want to play it. Definitely not a sure thing. You think Christian Gonzalez is going to be on Slayton? Yeah, a lot of people saying Dart the number one threat. They are saying they're not going to be scheming runs for him. Dalen Cambry erasure. That's true. There you go. There's your cheap guy that if he scores, you need to have him. Yeah, I would definitely play double Pats running back. I think that's a strong play on this slate. All right. See what I got. Top lineup, Jackson Dart with Devin Singletary and Theo Johnson. Bringbacks of Trevion Henderson, Drake May, and Andy Borregales. That's interesting. Drake May's only stack is with Trevion Henderson in that lineup. Second lineup, Jackson Dart with Darius Slayton, Devin Singletary, Theo Johnson, Wan'Dale Robinson. Full-on onslaught, leaves 1,200 on the table. Trevion Henderson, bring back. Third lineup is Drake May with Hunter Henry, Mac Hollins, Ramondre Stevenson, Stephon Diggs. Leaves 300 on the table. Devin Singletary, bring back. So a lot of varied lineups at the top here. As usual, I am, of course, using the Shady Portfolio Optimizer. So these are not in order of EV. If you don't use the Shady Portfolio Optimizer, you can just get them in the EV order. I like to use it as a way to get a diverse set of lineups that don't cannibalize each other. But just note that says I'm reading them off. They're not in the exact order of EV. I guess I can look at all positions together and just sort by my exposure. So in terms of flex exposure, I am getting to 57% Drake May, plus 16% at captain, 54% Henderson, plus 16 at captain. So a ton of the top Patriots, 53 and 22 of Jackson Dart, 38 and 12 of Mac Hollins, 34 and 5 of Theo Johnson. So that came down slightly at captain, but still overweight. 33 and 5 of Wan'Dale. So that came up a little bit, still underweight at captain, overweight in the flex. 29, 30 and 1 of Ramondre Stevenson, so well over the field there. 27 and 8 of Darius Slayton, over the field. 27 and 0.5 of Devin Singletary, so that's over the field. Happy with that. 25 and 2 of Tyrone Tracy, a bit under the field. That makes sense. Hodgins 20 and 3, so I'm actually over the field on Hodgins overall, both at captain and the flex now. 20 and 2 of Stephon Diggs, 18 and 6 of Kayshon Boutte, 16% now of Andy Beauregard. So I just decreased his projection a little bit. Now I'm just getting to 16%. 12 and 0.5 of Hunter Henry, 11% Daniel Bellinger, 9% Giants defense, 8% Patriots defense, 4% Younghoe Koo, 3% Pop Douglas, 2% Jack Westover, 1% Austin Hooper. I'm not getting to Kyle Williams or Dalen Cambry as of right now. All right, so I'm going to download these. Let me first download my... I might try and do one more sim, but I'm not, generally pretty happy with where things are after just making slight adjustments there. So I don't need to change all that much. Let's see. So I'm going to download these lineups. All right. Hopefully we make some money tonight. Last night felt like it was so close. Just needed Ertz to not be the guy you need, because everything else was going fairly well. I thought Chris Rodriguez doing well. RJ Harvey. A lot of I guess Jaleel McLaughlin also didn't do that well. He was somebody I took a big stand on. But I was overweight on Treylon Burks, who did, okay, and on the other running back there, Tyler Bidet. Just felt like it was close to being a big night. And then Ertz kind of ruined it. And then I guess Terry McLaurin scored the touchdown, so didn't end up being that close. All right. It's easier for me to look through this, I think, position by position. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to change anything. Quarterback, happy to get what I get. Running back, I mean, I wanted to be overweight on Singletary and Stevenson. I'm happy with those. I think this is generally the direction I wanted to go. So yeah, I guess I'm cool with that. Wan'Dale under at captain, over at flex, under at flex based on RG projection. That's kind of where I'd like to be. Diggs, I'd like a little bit more Diggs captain, I think. I've got a ton of Hollins, which at this ownership I think makes sense. Slayton, Boutte, Hodgins. Wouldn't mind slightly more Pop Douglas. Wouldn't mind slightly more Hunter Henry. All right, let's see. Oh, and Hooper, I think I'd like more than 1%. So definitely closer to where I'd like to be. All right, let me see. All right, so on the Giants. Good with my Wandale, Slayton, Hodgins exposures, I think. I think I was pretty good with my exposures there. Maybe I'll just boost Younghoe Koo's projection to like 7.2, just a slight projection bump for Younghoe Koo. And then the Giants sack rate up to 7.5. See if that makes a difference. Patriots sack rate also up to 7.8. Maybe get double digits there. And then if I want more Diggs captain, let's see, I can bring down the Diggs captain ownership down to about 10%. Henderson up to 24. See what that does. And then I could move, see if I move Boutte down. No, I'll just move up. I'll move up Diggs to, no, I'll move up Pop Douglas to 7.5%. Nope, that didn't work. 7.5% market share. Hooper up to 6.5 and Henry up to 18. And then I'll normalize, and that should bring down Boutte and Holland slightly, I think, in favor of the others. Okay, good. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm nervous I'm going to lose too much Borregales, but I'll leave it. I'll see what I get. Okay. We'll try that. Patriots D or Ramondre. For me, it's Ramondre. I think Ramondre is a strong play on this one. Marcus Jones will take on Wandale. I guess I have not looked at the wide receiver cornerback matchup report. Let's see. Fantasy Points is projecting it as Christian Gonzalez on Slayton, as people were saying in chat. Carlton Davis on Isaiah Hodgins and Marcus Jones on Wandale. So yeah, that's what it's saying in the Fantasy Points. And then on the other side, Cordell Flott on Keyshawn Boutte, Corey Black on Mac Hollins, Andrew Phillips on Stephon Diggs. I'd be lying if I pretended to know anything about any of those quarterbacks on the Giants. In terms of the matchup report, we can look at the wide receiver coverage matchup. Pop Douglas pops in terms of the coverage grade. Again, not going to run enough routes that it's going to matter. He also popped against the Bengals, and they just didn't use him, so it didn't matter. Does look like a strong coverage grade matchup for Diggs and Boutte. Not as great for Mac Hollins or Hunter Henry. So for whatever that's worth to you. And on the Giants, it looks like a strong matchup for Wandale Robinson, Darius Slayton. Not so much for Theo Johnson. Not enough that I'm going to be adjusting for it, though. That's a good question from Aaron Smith. Any chance Lane Kiffin's move to LSU and Ole Miss making a playoff run with the new coach has any effect on Dart's focus / performance? Yeah, you should cut Dart from all your lineups. I don't even know where Dart played, if I'm being totally honest. Where did he go to college? Must have gone to one of those. Ramondre or Borregales is a good one. I'm really high on Ramondre, so I'm biased always towards the RB2, but for me it would be Ramondre. The Sims are giving me a ton of Borregales though, so I'm probably wrong about that. Sean going to be playing the under in his parlay. Sean just hit a big parlay yesterday. All right. Oh, I got to move this. Okay. Both the RB2s get a touchdown tonight, Sean says. Man, I hope so. All right. So now, man, Isaiah Hodgins captain. Now the top lineup popping here. So for the guy who wanted to play Isaiah Hodgins, I forget what was the name now. I don't know. Send a super chat. Appreciated it. But looking good there. Quarterbacks, I'm getting to 31% Dart captain now. I don't think I love that. I don't know what I did to get that. 12% Trevion Henderson plus 50 at flex. Get into a ton of Singletary and Ramondre. Love that. Man, I'm tempted to go back and cut out some of that Dart captain, but I'm nervous about how it's going to affect the rest of my lineup because it can have a pretty big effect, and I don't want everything else to change. All right, let's see. Only getting to 1%. Man, what I cut out Diggs apparently. I thought I'd get more Diggs. All right. You know what? I'm gonna try real quickly to get more Diggs. I'm gonna try to run one more real quick. All right, so Dart, I'm gonna move up to 14% captain ownership. Diggs, I'm gonna bring up to a 22% market share. And I'm gonna normalize everything. All right, we'll see what that does. Okay. I don't have time to do anything else, so I'm just going to do that. I think I'll be able to get this sim. The sims have gotten much, much faster, if you haven't noticed, over the course of the season. So like 2 months ago, I wouldn't have even tried to run another sim right now. But I've been having better luck getting stuff done quickly. Dart was the Ole Miss starting quarterback the last 3 years. Okay. Do you still care about if you're an NFL quarterback, do you still care about your college to that extent when you're gone? Or do you just change your entire focus to the NFL? Like, I'm sure they cheer for the college they went to, like at school if they win. But like, I'm guessing it's focused. They got to be focused on their new team at this point. Zero Hodgins, says Strike a Loot. I mean, first game with Jackson Dart, we have no idea what they're going to look like together. All right, you got one Hodgins. I think that's safer. Someone said fade Drake and Henderson. That's risky. That is pretty risky. Is it because the offensive line is hurt? What's their reasoning for that? Oh yeah, I would imagine. I mean, I get it that it's going to be serious. Like you're kind of a team. It's sort of like a fraternity in some way. But still, like, obviously it's not going to affect his play. I know that was a joke, by the way, when he brought it up in chat. All right, we got 3 minutes left. We're calculating payouts. I think we're on track to get this one in. Single entry, Henderson, captain, May, Booty, Dart, Theo, Hodgins. Yeah, beauty. Booty's kind of lower owned. I mean, it's not like there's nobody that's super contrarian in that lineup, but it's a nice one. Yeah, good luck to everybody. Okay, diversifying payouts. We're gonna get these lineups in, I think. And hopefully I get a little bit more digs at captain now. without like changing the entire composition of my portfolio. Reminder, if you want to check out the Discord, it's free to join. There's a link in the description. Yeah, please do like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. All right, we're barely going to get there in time, I think. But I think we will. I think we will get there in time. We're on the final step. Crunching the numbers. All right, I've got, okay, good. Just in time. Download that. I'm not going to have time to look and see if it actually looks how I want it to. Just going to have to play it, it looks like. And then look at it. So we'll find out if I totally screwed this up. All right. Player exposures. Quarterbacks, okay, a little bit less darts, still a lot. Everything looks good there. Running backs look great, getting to 30+% of both the backups. Under on Tracy, lots of Henderson. Wide receivers, okay, I'm up to 3.6% digs. It feels better than 1% to me. Things moved in the direction I wanted them to. I'm only at 17% Booty now, but still well over the field. 7% Douglas, that looks good. Still a ton of Theo. Didn't get to much more Hunter Henry. So I'm well into the field. That's my Zach Ertz spot tonight, where Hunter Henry can bury me. 7% Bellinger, 1% Hooper, 1% Westover. Would have liked more Hooper also. Didn't quite get there. 19% Burrow. 3% Younghoe Koo is that's a risk. 8 and 10 of the defenses, so didn't really get that up to where I'd like it to be. We got close. We got close to ideal, but it's always going to be a lot of luck involved here. Pretty close to where I'd like to be. Yeah, gin and tonic. No, just water while I'm doing a stream. Gin and tonic. I don't think I could clear my throat with a gin and tonic. All right. Good luck, everybody. Hopefully we can win some money tonight. Let me know if you do. Always love to hear from you if you win some money. Let me know in the Discord, DM me, whatever, and shout it out and spend that money wisely. Okay, I'll be back on Thursday for the Week 14 Thursday Night Football stream. Thanks everybody for joining. I will see you very